Welcome. Great to have you with us on the show today. One day before training camp, I'm out at the golf course last night with men's soccer coach Jeff Cook and former Penn State men's golf coach Greg Nye. And just ahead of us, as we're playing, are a bunch of Penn State football players. Yes, enjoying a final evening of freedom for a while as training camp gets underway tomorrow. So looking forward to that, and a lot to talk about. And Media Day will take place on Sunday. So we will obviously dip into some of the stories over the next couple of weeks as Penn State gets ready for the upcoming season. Somebody said to me, what about the hype surrounding the season? I said, look, what was the hype going into last year? I said, the bottom line is Penn State wasn't ranked last year. I said at the time, it doesn't matter. It matters where you are maybe by the end of October and then really into November and so forth. And Penn State ended up being, 7th in the nation when it was all said and done. I know people can't stand the James Franklin 1-0 mentality. The critics can't stand it. And yet it's the only way to go about your business if you're either in this business. I'm talking about the play-by-play business. I'm not talking about the writing business. But in the play-by-play business as well as being the player and coaching business, it's the only way to go about it. Hey, you can't just sit there and go, oh, well, I wonder about Northwestern. Hey, how about wonder about West Virginia? Right? And that's the first thing that's on the schedule. So we can talk about the trip through, but that was the point I was making last year. It doesn't matter where they were ranked going into last season. How would it play out week by week by week by week by week by week? And then have you crafted yourself a record that then puts you in a position? And it's the same thing with this. They'll start out ranked in the top 10, somewhere in the top 10. But it's still going to boil down to week by week by week by week by week. You've got to go along. You have to find ways to win, keep going, keep the record there, put yourself in position, and keep going. That's what it's going to be all about. So yes, they will start ranked in the top 10. Somebody said, is this the most hyped season for Penn State in years? And I said, well, yeah, probably maybe since, a little. 2017 had some hype to it. 2008 did. 99 did. 94 did. 86 did. And so did 82. They both, all those seasons had a lot of hype going into it. Most of them worked out. A couple didn't. But you take it on a week-by-week basis. And I'm talking about, this is what, when I talk about taking it on a week-by-week basis, this is what the coaches have to do, what the players have to do. Jack Ham and I as broadcasters, that's what we do. We just take it 1 week at a time. You, the fans, don't have to do that. You can have all the fun you want, and seriously, and it's fun to speculate about where they'll be, what they'll do, how good they'll be. That's the fun part, right? And I know that the attitude I have when I talk to groups or on this show, it can be frustrating that I don't go along and do that because in my job, that's not what I do. In other words, when I lock in on a week, like the game on Saturday, or maybe in Michigan State's case of Friday, that's what I have in front of me. So I don't look at the big picture as often. Fans, man, you guys can have a great time looking at the big picture. And I think for all of you, it's fun to look at it, especially at this time of the year. I just can't do that because of the nature of the job. And James Franklin can't do that because of the nature of the job. Doesn't mean he doesn't have staff members that are already crafting on a week-by-week basis game plans or adjustments to it for Northwestern, game plans and adjustments to it for Iowa, game plans and adjustments to it for Illinois, game plans for Delaware and adjustments to. I mean, they're doing that stuff, but as the head coach, he doesn't get around to it until it's time to get around to that. As players, they can't get around to it until they get around to that. The Women's World Cup is problematic. They advanced. They're now into the knockout stage. But to me, the sign of all this was the opener, when they beat Vietnam 3-0. It can play out differently, but I think, were you on that week? I'm trying to think, yeah. And I said that they would be 3 to 7 goals better, something like that. Well, they only got the 3. I think 3's enough, but like the whole field was tilted. They got 3. They got 1 against the Netherlands, and they didn't score at all last night against Portugal. They ended up 0-0, and in extra time, Portugal hit the post. Portugal hit the post. Okay, not the U.S. This has been an extremely hyped U.S. team, and I haven't talked much about it leading in until they started, but I kept thinking, boy, you're hyping this and hyping this. I'm not so. I've been wondering, especially since Tokyo and watching the Olympics, like, how good are they really? Well, now we're going to find out in the knockout stage, but they better find something, because I thought their midfield performance against Netherlands was not good. Got better in the second half, but first half was not good. And I think an issue was cropped up that a lot of people didn't think was going to happen. They're not scoring. They only scored 3 against Vietnam. Vietnam is like, they're novices at this compared to the U.S. They scored 1 to tie Netherlands, came from behind, and didn't score last night or early this morning. It was at 3 this morning. Now, in the knockout stage, obviously it's 1 by 1. Got it. But they have a couple of issues, and that puts them in the same bracket with Sweden, and Sweden might be better. Whoops. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Time now for 49 good training camp San Francisco seconds.
That's first day of pads yesterday, and there was a 20-man fight. That's a good way to start the practice season off. Good way to start the full pads off. But biggest thing, obviously,
you are taking joy in the fact that your players don't like each other?
No. Well, I do take joy in the competitiveness, but not the second part. No. But the other part. The other part
you have a team that doesn't like each other.
That's all right. There's a lot of people there's a lot of teams right now that aren't fond of the 49ers. There's one in Philadelphia right now. But I think, to me, the biggest news, obviously, is Nick Bosa. You got to see if you can get a contract done or get him to camp in one way, shape, or form. When you repeatedly see these guys, when they miss camp, doesn't matter if they're a superstar or not, it does affect them in a big way when they come back. Joey Bosa being one. Missed, 4 games that year? He finally signed the contract, and he hasn't really been the same. Nick Bosa is arguably, I think you could say, top 2 defensive end in the league. 3, maybe. Sure. Got to get back into camp.
Yeah. There you go. It's more Bosa drama.
Yeah, well, it's almost as if when the first day he didn't show up, I thought of that right away. I thought, you know what, like brother. And there's nothing, and I'm sure old man Bosa is running the ship, no doubt about it, driving the ship, riding the ship. Well, not riding the ship, but boarding and driving the ship at the moment. So we'll see. I think obviously he's one of the best players in the team. He's one of the locker room leaders. He got to at some point get something done. He's going to get paid one way or another.
Well, he better show up for work too.
Yes.
He misses the Bosa. My issue with the Bosa is quite simple. They both miss a lot of time.
Yeah, injuries. Yeah, Nick missed his whole. Well, missed 15 games his second year with the torn ACL. Had a pec injury.
And I know things happen. I got it. But it can't keep repeatedly happening with the same guy and various stuff.
No.
It's not as if,
Nick has been better than Joey, but no, you're right.
They miss too much time. I'm sorry.
Especially in college. Nick missed.
You do not help the team when you are not playing. Okay?
When you're not there, period. And in some cases, Joey's case, he missed the first 4 games.
I mean, that's been my big problem with the Boses. You got to punch in and show up for work.
Mm-hmm.
Hey?
Yeah.
Hey? When you have to start out sentences with when he plays.
When he's healthy, when he plays,
right? When he plays.
Sure.
Okay? That's not good.
No.
Okay? You got guys out there cranking through, like fighting through stuff. And of course, you'll probably hear from there, he fights through a lot. No, I show up, I don't see him. He's a dominant player when he plays.
Yeah, when he's there, he's the absolute.
He's a dominant player.
No question.
Right?
Not only the pass rush, the ability to flush the guy, the rusher, to flush the man with the ball out completely in any way. Yeah, he did as good of a job on Taysom Hill or Jalen Hurts as anybody did in the league. Yeah, that's just the ability that he has, without question. That quickness and that awareness is as good as anybody. T.J. Watt obviously is up there. There's no doubt about it. Myles Garrett, from a pass rush perspective, is up there, but there are a few like Bosa. I named 2 guys, and I can't name anybody else.
I just can't. There's a lot of heaped praise that are placed upon these guys that when they play, it is absolutely warranted. Right? So, no guarantee. When Nick Bosa plays, he's tremendous. When Joey Bosa plays, he's good. I'm not a big Joey Bosa
Nick's
guy.
better. Yeah, I mean,
Nick.
Better.
I mean, to me, it's like they're in 2 different categories because Joey Bosa he doesn't play enough when he does play.
Nick's borderline unblockable.
Nick is a tremendous player, but I mean, it's like with Aaron Judge. Okay, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, everybody gets enamored like he hits a home run against Baltimore. Well, that's fine. He also missed 2 months.
Well, at this point,
right? And then Sunday night they had him out of the lineup.
Yeah.
What was he exhausted?
Yeah.
Exhausted from the 2 games he played. One was a DH.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh no, we're trying to make sure that he doesn't re-injure it. Well, what the heck are we doing here?
Then Bryce Harper is supposed to be out till
Bryce
August.
Harper's wearing mechanisms all over his arm. He's out there playing. All right, and it's just I don't get it. But Judge is such a special talent. That special
he's
talent,
on the field. Yeah.
That special talent has played 3 full seasons in his career.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, he's been in the league since 15, 16?
17.
17. So 17 is his first year in the league. He's played 3 full seasons.
Yep. The other part with that too, and not just Judge. Everybody always has the what might have been with Ken Griffey Jr. And towards the end of his career, absolutely, no doubt about it. You wish he would have stayed healthy. I think he easily would have chased Hank Aaron's record. Would have chased a few other records. But now the question's starting to become, what if on Mike Trout? At this point, Trout has missed a lot of time too. He's a guy that's missed the pretty much full seasons a couple times now, missed several weeks this year now. There's no doubt about it. These guys, when they're on the field, are as dominant as they get. I would agree. Judge is one of the most feared hitters in baseball, absolutely.
Yeah.
Trout's one of the absolute best still as a 5-tool player that I've seen play the game, but he's unfortunately, injuries completely bug them, and they cause issues, without a doubt.
And that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then And then they demand more money. Oh, yeah, I'm a great. Go over here in the back. Yeah, you're great, like most of the time. Oh, no, I'm great all the time. No. Let me list you the games that you missed. Here. You weren't great those days.
Right.
I mean, remember, it's not this Judge being on the IL for almost 2 months. This is his second trip this year.
Mm-hmm.
He was out earlier in the year, too.
Yeah.
Like, you sit there and go, what's your value to the club at that point if you're always out?
Yeah. Stanton's another one.
But Stanton has dramatically diminished skills.
Yeah.
I mean, his skills have dramatically diminished.
Completely.
He's a 200 hitter.
Completely.
He's a 200 hitter, and he's a liability in the field.
Big time.
This is not his Marlins year. He has not had a Yankee year that is equivalent to anything he did with the Marlins.
Anything he did in Miami. No. And that could be two things. That obviously could be you're in the New York market. There are certain players just don't adapt to that. And that is not a myth. That's reality. That is the
Ed Whitson.
Yeah.
Kevin Brown.
Yeah. Kevin Brown being a big one. Absolutely. Kevin Brown did not have the attitude at all. Yeah. I remember Tom Verducci wrote a great piece on him. Went back to his Little League and thought for sure he would get a lot of people praising him. It was the total opposite. Yep. And Kevin Brown said, "You write that, I'm never going to talk to you again." He wrote it, never talked to him again. And Kevin Brown's attitude pretty much through his entire major league career. Got the first $100 million contract as a pitcher and didn't live up to it at all. I think you're absolutely right. And
Game 7, 2004, when he was going to take the mound, I looked around and I said, okay, the Red Sox are going to the World Series. Mm-hmm. You knew it.
You knew it.
Right?
Absolutely.
And in the first 2 innings, it was 6-0.
Yeah, Johnny Damon at the Grand Slam, absolutely. 6-0. And you see this so many times with these free agents that sign these 9 and 10-year deals. Yeah, Bryce Harper, obviously, I think you could say has lived up to it so far. I mean, he's still got a 13-year deal, got a ways to go. Manny Machado, I think you could say I think Machado has been
very good.
Very good.
But let's outline some numbers for you. Okay. The 1, 2, and 3 payrolls.
Mm-hmm.
Yankees. Well, the Mets are first.
Yep.
Mets. Yeah. Yankees. Padres.
Yep. Mets who have started to gut some of their team. Yeah.
Right. Have combined for 157 wins.
Mm-hmm.
The 27th, 28th, and 29th payrolls. Rays, Orioles, Pirates. Right? And the Pirates are not anywhere near 500. No. Have combined for 175 wins.
Yep.
At the All-Star game, mm-hmm. I talked to Bob Nightingale of USA Today yesterday.
Yep.
And Bob told me, he says, Steve, I'm at the All-Star game. He said, I was talking to a couple of the heads of the Players Association, and they privately said to me, he says, this is bad news for us. He said, we keep telling everybody you spend money, which, of course, is good for our rank and file, mm-hmm. that you'll win.
Yeah.
He says, and now you're seeing this. The 27, 28, and 29 have 18 more wins combined than 1, 2, and 3 on payroll. All right. He says,
great point.
That's bad for us. Right. You look at, okay, I know the Red Sox lost last night, but the Red Sox have gone from top 5 payroll where they won.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Red Sox in a top Series, 5 payroll position of 1 and 4, 7, 13, and 18. Well, the Red Sox right now are competitive for the wild card. I know they lost to Seattle 6-2 last night.
Yeah.
But they have right now the 15th highest payroll in baseball. They're right in the middle. And they're ahead of the Yankees.
Yep.
Okay? And that is an issue where the Yankees have a $210 million payroll advantage over the Orioles. And they're 10 games back of the Orioles. The Orioles are a better team.
By far.
And not only that, not only are the Orioles a better team, they're more fun to watch.
Yeah.
The Yankees are not a fun team to watch. They're boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they're dull as heck. I mean, because they don't do anything. Right? They don't have spectacular fielders. They've got one player that when he plays is fun to watch. Nobody else is. They've got one great starting pitcher that's fun to watch when he pitches. But this isn't the days of Jeter or A-Rod or Teixeira,
Right.
Andy Pettit, Roger Clemens. I mean, some dynamic person. Mariano Rivera, Bernie Williams. That's not this team. That's not this team anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That could run, that could hit with power, that could group runs together, that could get a dominating pitching performance, could have had the best closer in the history of the game. Okay? No matter what you thought of them, they were fun.
Yeah.
Right? This team, the Yankees, they are not even remotely, they are not close. Boring to watch.
Not close. And I'll tell you the other thing that's concerning, and Bob made a great point. That's absolutely spot on. Then the other thing, too, is you look back over the years, and I go back 20, 25 years even, teams that have essentially bought a World Series, there aren't many. 2020,
Marlins.
I think you could say with the Dodgers.
The Marlins 97 and 03.
Absolutely, 03. Yankees in 09. I think you could make that argument without a doubt.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you look at when the Yankees had that core four. Where'd those core four come from? They were homegrown.
Yeah.
And they signed free agents that weren't exactly top-tier free agents. You got Paul O'Neill in there. You got Scott Brocious in there. Charlie Hayes. Tino Martinez. These guys weren't top-tier $300 million free agents, or at that time, $75, $80 million free agents. And but the other part of it that you have that homegrown talent, but you showed the willingness to spend money. And I think that's what right now is separating the Orioles from a lot of people. I think the Orioles over the years have shown, and they failed doing it. Yes, Chris Davis was terrible signing.
Well, because they felt pressured to
absolutely,
because he had 50 home runs from everybody to sign him.
But point being, number one, they home grew their talent, which they've done a great job of doing right now. And the other part of it is they've shown in the past, and I think they're going to show it again, their willingness to spend money and be a competitive team. That is going to be something that is going to help baseball. Yeah, Bob Nightingale's point, I think, is spot on, absolutely right on, because you look at teams that won the World Series, Royals 2 years straight were in the World Series. They never spent money.
No.
Everybody that was on that team is no longer there.
Yep.
One way or another. They just do not spend money at all. That's where it's a significant concern for Major League Baseball. Absolutely. You want a team like the Orioles to succeed because they've shown, like I said, they've shown in the past that willingness to spend money. Yeah. But you also want those 1, 2, 3 to succeed because you want it to be better for the game, because that's the encouragement, as Bob said, for other teams to be competitive and doing that by spending money and getting the revenue sharing you get and using it wisely.
2018 Red Sox, Bogarts at shortstop, Devers at third, Benintendi in left, Bradley in center, Betts in right, Vasquez behind the plate. They began the season with Pedroia at second. What do they all have in common?
Absolutely.
They're all farm guys.
Yeah.
Oh, they spend, excuse me, over here in the back, excuse me, that's like 7 out of 9 positions on the field were farm system guys. Right? Now, the pitchers, no.
Right.
And obviously, David Ortiz, the Twins cut him.
Yeah. You got,
so they picked him up. Yeah. Right? Now, he wasn't on the 18 team, but I'm saying before that. But, okay. So the farm system's important. Just the Pirates can't get it right. They're number one farm system, bad major league team. But
can't get it right because they haven't kept the right pieces. I think is one of the biggest things with the Pirates. You let a lot of players go that you should have kept. You kept a lot of players you should have let go.
Now here's the next part. Okay, it's not just that the top 3 payrolls right now are treading water.
Right.
And that 27, 28, and 29 are outplaying them. But after a collective bargaining agreement, and this happens in every sport, and you're about to see it in the NBA, it's going to kick into another gear. You saw that Jaylen Brown got 305. Well, Jason Tatum's going to be eligible for 358, right, when his comes up because of the escalators in the collective bargaining agreement. Then the new one's going to come out, and the NBA numbers for salaries are going to go through the roof. Okay. Every time you have a new collective bargaining agreement, bigger contracts come out. Okay. Let's look at the bigger contracts that were signed this past offseason. Trey Turner with the Phillies, Are you sure you want him as your shortstop the next 10 years? Okay. Xander Bogaerts, San Diego Padres. Are you sure you want him as your shortstop for the next 10 years? Doesn't mean they can't have good games. Because it's not like they're bad players, but they are not players you invest in for 11 years. Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis. Right? I'm sorry, but okay, Machado already wants out. He's got a long-term contract. As I've said many times, and this is ideology versus reality.
Yes.
Ideology, if I'm a general manager, idealistically, I would never sign a position player to more than 5 and a pitcher to more than 3. Right?
Yeah.
Realistically,
that can't happen. Yeah,
I can't get away with it.
No.
But you look at players over time. Did the Pujols deal work out?
No. No, and that's where I'm going with it. Yeah, the Hall of Famers.
Dustin Pedroia was 8 years. Did that work out? No.
No.
Did Alex Rodriguez in reality work out?
No. No.
On and on you go. Robinson Cano.
Yeah.
10-year deal. Seattle Mariners.
No.
Right. I mean, all these long-term keep the guy, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? You know what it does? What's interesting is that you see a contract. So let's take Trey Turner. Were the Philly fans jumping up and down when they saw it was 11 years?
No.
Now,
I don't think they were jumping up and down for 13 years for Bryce Harper, and they were extremely excited to get him.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's where, the long terms, and you just named it. You're talking Hall of Famers. First $300 million man in baseball, Miguel Cabrera. That 10-year deal didn't work out.
No.
And these guys are, when I'm naming the top 25 to 30 players that ever played the game, Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera are in that list.
Yeah.
Absolutely on that list.
It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough spot to be in because if you don't go that route, but somebody else is going to.
But here's the other part, though. You sit there and okay, who is the 6th highest paid Cincinnati Red right now? It's Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Okay. Bobby Bonilla, we all joke about Bobby Bonilla Day, but Bobby Bonilla gets like a $1.1 million. He's not the only one.
No.
There are other people that get paid on July 1 from these contracts where you sit back and go, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't either. And a lot of times, well, the Bonilla not so much. The Mets just deferred so much to the point that...
he's not the only one. There are a couple of other guys that have deferred contracts. People don't realize. And Junior is one of them.
Yes. Junior being one. And the other part of it, a lot of times you see it, and you see it in all sports, period, but I think you see it in baseball just as much, is a team that is that close. You were hoping to get that one piece that can be that guy that can complete your team. And I think that was the Phillies' mentality with Turner.
Yeah, sure, because that took Bryson Stott. Stott goes to second base. Stott has been a guest on this
Segura
show.
Back. Absolutely.
Right? And Stott's been really good for them.
Been real good. And they were, you're essentially 2 games away from a World Series championship, World Series title. You have the mentality, okay, we were a little weak at shortstop last year, taking nothing away from what Segura and even before him, Gregorius. Gregorius, I think, was a little bit of a disappointment in Philly, but take nothing away from what either one of them did. You look at it and say, okay, I'm one guy maybe from being over the hump and winning that World Series and beating the Astros, and you think Trey Turner is going to be that guy. Sometimes he doesn't turn out to be that guy. I think it happens more often than not now in the NFL. The team that loses the Super Bowl has money, goes out and spends it on a lot of players because the mentality is, okay, we've got to be that much more better because we're close. Yeah, our window's going to close. I hate hearing the word window because it's ridiculous. The window.
No, I use window because I think everything is built on windows.
It is, but
because the windows are because of the money.
Sure.
Okay, windows are because of
the salary cap, especially
because of the salary cap.
Absolutely.
That's why I use the word windows because you look at it and say, okay, at this point, Like, I'm still spending money on a couple of guys, but they're older and they're not going to be able to. I'm talking about guys in their prime as to when they can play. The Eagles, as far as I'm concerned, they have this year, next year, and then after that, they have a big problem.
It's going to be, because they're going to need, and they obviously gave Hurts the big contract.
Right. And
Devontae Smith's going to be a free agent.
You cannot keep everybody.
No.
And so they're going to come back to the pack. Meanwhile, maybe somebody else in that division could be the Giants, okay, because they have their quarterback all locked up. They got their running back right now, a couple of other things, or it could be even, believe it or not, Washington.
Yeah.
Right? Depending on what they do at quarterback. It's the teams. Look, over and over again, anybody who pays their quarterback 12% or more of their salary cap money has not won.
No. And that's
You're
where...
like Mahomes. No, Mahomes' contract is structured
enough
in a very interesting way, because we've had Brett Veach on this show twice, right? In the last 4 years, we've had Brett Veach on the show twice. We talked on one of them about the Mahomes contract and how important the structuring of the contract was to give them the flexibility to do it. Because what happens is that when you pay all that money, and this is going to happen with Hurts, when you pay all that money to one guy, which you have to, it's the position you have to do it.
Quarterbacks are not a dime a dozen. Yeah.
And when you do that, you lose your flexibility across the board.
Right.
Why do you think the Brady thing worked out so well with the Patriots? It worked out really well because Brady wasn't taking the max for years.
He was never taking the max. And
and this, with let's face it, when he was married to Gisele Bündchen,
he didn't have to. Yeah.
Okay. The family had way more than enough. Right? And he was still getting paid. And at the end of his career, he got paid.
He got maxed. Yeah,
right? Sure. But when he was with the Patriots, he was taking a little less than some other guys, so they were spreading the wealth.
Yeah. And it's where I think the 49ers are extremely lucky if Brock Purdy works out. Because you have a guy under a rookie contract that is not taking up that salary. Same when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. You didn't yet extend Russell Wilson.
He was they were playing on third-round money.
On third, exactly.
He was playing on third-round money.
Yeah. All of that is massive. And but the quarterback takes up a massive part of the salary cap. They have to, because without them, without a quarterback, you don't win. Plain and simple.
Notice last year, what did Kansas City do? They dealt Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Like, really? All right. Well, they did so because they needed to free up room, and they figured the quarterback was good enough to overcome it. Well, it turned out in their case they were correct. But that's why they dealt him. They dealt him because they really, at that point, financially, based on the rules of the league, had to be clever with how they made financial moves. That was one of them, because they weren't going to be able to pay him what the Dolphins ended up paying him.
No.
And that's, these are little things that come up. I mean, the money part of it, that's why teams have capologists and so forth. Baseball doesn't have a cap. They have a luxury tax.
Luxury tax, they have. The great teams are going to take the chances, and those chances pay off. Chiefs being one. Obviously, trading Tyreek Hill, you go back to when Kareem Hunt had his off-field issues. He was as good of a running back in football. He's in the top 2 or 3. They released him. So that's it. Enough's enough. They said, we don't need Frank Clark. They literally, this team, Chris Jones, it's the same thing when you look at what has happened with these teams. Patriots, Deion Branch wants more money, go get it somewhere else. This is where what separates great from good. And when you have the ability to manage your cap to the point that okay, these are the guys I'm going to go with, I can take the chance of losing that guy, and it pays off. That's what makes a good team great.
This is where your general manager and your coach, and you hate to put it this way.
Yeah.
But, you talked about you don't like Windows. I believe in Windows because Windows involves shelf life.
Yeah.
Right?
Bill Walsh excelled at.
Okay.
Excelled at.
Okay. The Eagles are at a point now where Jordan Davis better come through. Fletcher Cox's shelf life is at the end.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Brandon Graham's shelf life is at the end.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they can't come up with a play here or there, but Fletcher Cox didn't play all that well last year. in my opinion. He was good, but it was like, for the most part. Graham, when he was out there, okay. All right. Their running back situation is one that's weird. Gainwell's not bad, but he's not an every down
not
running
an every
back.
down guy. No, I think you're hoping Swift is going to be your number one guy if he can stay healthy. Again, there's that if he can.
Sorry.
He doesn't have hands out of the backfield, I can tell you that. I say that.
Yet in training camp, you know what I've been doing? Okay. I was talking to a guy that covers the Eagles yesterday. He said they've been throwing a lot to him out of the backfield.
Right? Trying to get him to catch probably. And it's
probably 7 and 7s.
But the other part of it is people talk about how dominant the Eagles' defensive line is. They lost a little bit of that, though. I think Hargrave is very underrated. I think I say that now.
No, Hargrave's a good player.
Yeah, I think he's a great player. I think the Steelers.
But there is shelf life. Okay?
There clearly is.
What is the shelf life of Darius Slay?
Yeah, not only Slay, Bradbury too, and Bradbury's young.
After watching Slay in the Super Bowl, and he had, if I were him, I'd just kind of stay low for a while because he had a terrible Super Bowl.
Yeah, he did.
It's like, okay, biggest game of your career. Not impressed.
No, he struggled. I thought Bradbury struggled. I thought the secondary as a whole did not do. Gardner Johnson's Gardner Johnson. I think if he's able to do what he did in I think you could say New Orleans too. I thought he played incredibly well in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Saints gave up on him a little prematurely. I think what he did in New Orleans, what he did in Philadelphia, he could do that in Detroit. I think he's going to help the Lions in a big way. But yeah, the Eagles, I think, have a couple of question marks, and they are the best team in the NFC, in my opinion. I think I do agree with that. I think their offensive line's the best in football. Receiving core as a whole, I think you could argue might be the best in football, with the two of them combined with having Smith and Brown. And then, having a suitable tight end. I think your running game's a question, but I think Hurts has answered a lot of questions at quarterback that we've had in the last 2 years. He continues to answer them. So I think offense I'm not very concerned about. Defensively, they've got the pass rush. I think Reddick is as good as it gets, but secondary, the back end, I think, is still question mark, and you're right. I think some of these players, the ages are getting up there, and you hope these tackles are going to stay out of trouble, number one. Yeah. And the other part of it is, can they flourish?
All right, now I want to get to Ron Cook's column today, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, because it's about Jack. Yeah. And, Ron thinks the world of Jack.
Yeah.
He does. And he said, he started out the column by saying, the call came in last week from Grand Prairie, Texas. Ron, this is Joe Green. And he called up Green to talk about Jack Ham. And Jack is going to be honored Saturday at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. 60th anniversary celebration, but it's also his 35th year. And Green said, quote, I'll talk to you, Ron, about Jack under one condition. You have to convince him to come back to the Hall of Fame. Well, I can tell you in no uncertain terms, I had a conversation with Jack about this. Let's see. We talked yesterday. It was actually last week. Because we talked yesterday, but then we talked on Thursday or Friday. I think it was Friday. And yesterday we just talked about camp and things like that. I did bring up the Hall of Fame to him on Friday about going back. And he said, nah, Steve, I'm not going to go. I said, are you sure? I said, it's the 35th time right through. But he said, nah, he says, he's not going to do it. So we talked about it for 5 minutes, right? So this is what Joe Green said. Jack was a great cover guy for one thing, but you also couldn't get outside of the edge because he was so great against the run. It is amazing how so often when you talk to people who have done great things, great coaches, great players, how they always remember the one they missed. Every time we talk about, like, it comes up about playing on the edge, and this is like a dinner or whatever, just chit chat, or somebody will bring it up, and Jack always brings up the O.J. Simpson run in the regular season game off the edge. where he went 75 yards for a touchdown. The Bills won the game. Then in the playoffs, the Steelers clobbered the Bills. Like I said, Jack, well, this is like last year down at Auburn. We were at dinner, and I said, and it came up again, and he brought it up again. And I said, Jack, I said, look, it's been 50 years. You got to let it go.
No, that's
right. And he's laughing. It was a joke. We were laughing.
Yep.
He said Jack could do it all. He said, Andy Russell. All right. He says players would rise out of their seats in the dark film room to give him a standing ovation for plays he would make. In the 70s, Mel Blount said there was no better linebacker than Jack Ham. Cerebral approach. Joe Green, technically perfect. He was very, very in tune to the game. He played a smart, smooth, intelligent game. He always was where he was supposed to be, seemingly with the least amount of effort. Fundamentally sound, Mel Blount said. You watch film on Jack and watch the way that he tackled people. To me, that was his strength, the way he could come up and fundamentally make tackles. Blount said Jack Ham had tremendous athletic skills. Jack was and still is a terrific athlete. I think he could have been good at baseball or basketball or whatever. He was just a tremendous athlete. And, of course, Jack and I play golf. And I can tell you, even to this day, it's like he still plays a beautiful, beautiful round of golf. All right. 25 and a half regular season sacks, 32 interceptions, 21 fumble recoveries. He had 3 more sacks and 5 more interceptions in the postseason. 2 of those interceptions were in the 74 AFC Championship game to win what many thought was one of the greatest in the franchise's history. All right. Says, why do I remember about those interceptions, Joe Green said. Both were very timely, very timely. All right. He then had a foot injury before the Super Bowl game against the Rams at the Rose Bowl. That's why Jack and I always kid when we're standing on the field, like either at a practice or before the game, and he'll look up at the box and he'll go, hey, Steve, he says, see that spot right up there to the left? I says, yeah. He says, that's where I was safe and sound during that one. Joe Green was asked about him not going back to the Hall of Fame. He says, yeah, please ask him about that. He's not as shy and bashful as I am, and I go back every year. And so Ron Cook, and again, I know people are like, Ron Cook, it's like, please, you know what? If you get to know Cookie, he's a great guy.
Yep.
Right? And he gave Ron the same answer he gave me. Jack said, quote, I don't enjoy that. That's not fun for me. I'm 74 years old. I'm going to do things I enjoy. He says, I don't have a trophy room in my house. I can attest to that. Jack does not have a trophy room in his house, right? And I love his house. It's great. But there's no, you would, if you go in, Jack's home is about comfort and about entertaining. Right? Beautiful deck, nice bar inside, to entertain with. I mean, great, beautiful kitchen, right? You would not know that he even attended the Super Bowl game, let alone won it. You would not know that he'd ever been to Canton, let alone be inducted. You'd never know he was in the by going into his house. There is no trophy room, okay, at all. Said, I don't have any of that stuff. He says, that was just part of my life that I loved. I loved playing, but as Chuck Noll always said, you've got to get on with your life's work. All right? And Jack said, the key is, don't try to figure me out. It's just me. Okay. Now, it's a little different for me because it's not a question of, he said, don't try to figure me out, except we do so much together that I knew that was his answer.
Sure.
I knew that's why. Right? So there was nothing in here that's a surprise, because I already knew he wasn't going back. He told me. Right? And I only brought it up to bring it up, not to convince him to go. I said,
Right.
You going to go to the thing or not? He goes, nah, Steve, I don't think I'm going to go. Because I didn't think he was going to go. Right? He has no ego. Penn State fans may not realize, because you have to listen to other broadcasts, may not realize how good they have it on football and in basketball with Jack Ham and Dick Girardi. So one thing that SiriusXM does is it gives all of us the opportunity to hear everybody else. These two guys, Jack and Dick, are such a cut above everybody. You can tell now people watch TV, and with all due respect to some very talented people, that'll be a part of it. Todd Blackledge, Gary Danielson, Kirk Herbstreit, like Joel Klatt. They're all really good, but they're not as good as Jack is. Jack sees everything. He does it with an analytical, intelligent eye to explain in layman's terms, so people, when the game is over, they know more about the game, not just the game they watched, but the game and sport of football. Mm-hmm. That's what he does. And again, zero ego. And that's important to him. And same thing with Dick. He sees things on the floor. He sees things happening, right? And I've said 1,000 times, no matter what you think of me, right, of how good you think I am, and I know you think I'm disgusting, right? Go ahead, you can admit it. No matter how good you think I am exponentially better because I work with Jack and with Dick. Okay? Not even close. Right? And, you always have to desire, and I tell my broadcasting class all the time, you need to desire to work with people who make you better. Mm-hmm. Right? Then in turn, it then becomes your responsibility to do everything you can to help make them better too. It's a partnership. But you desire to work with people who make you better. Don't be the one that goes in, I've got all the, it's all about, no. Right? One of the reasons that nobody in the broadcast booth, nobody, it just really comes down to two people. Because, look, Roger Corey does a great job. Jeff Tarman before that. Bob Taylor does a great job. Brian Tripp's phenomenal on the sidelines, so forth. But when it comes to the vast majority of the verbiage spoken, it's Jack and me, Dick and me, right? One of the keys that we feel is important is nobody cares who talks. And I will tell you a story that goes back. Penn State's playing Pitt in Three Rivers Stadium. That's how far back this goes. All right, Three Rivers. And in the first half, Jack was rushing. I remember Franco Harris then popped in the booth at halftime and then, was kidding around with Jack. And then Franco, he comes in, he goes, "Hey, Steve, you carry Jack the way we did." I was like, things like that, right? Okay. All right. Well, he left. I said, "Hey," this is the only time we ever talked about this. I said, "Can I ask you something?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Why are you rushing?" He said, "Well, I want to make sure you get it back." And I said, "Jack, who cares?" I said, "Make whatever point you want to make and take however long you want to make it." I said, does everybody in the audience want to hear what you have to say and what you think? I want to hear what you have to say and what you think. I said, so if you go longer, I'll go shorter. I said, if you go shorter, I'll go longer. Set up more, pieces on the field, who's, two left, two right, things like that. I said, I said, it's just two guys watching a football game, talking to each other. And I feel like the audience has benefited from that because Jack has the freedom to express whatever he's thinking, long form, short form, and the audience is better for it because they're hearing him say it. Just like in the pregame show, the more questions he answers in the pregame show as opposed to me is better because, number one, the fans love talking to him. And number two, let's face it, I mean, his football knowledge is off the charts. And part of the reason his football knowledge is off the charts is he's inquisitive. He does not walk in there with all the answers. He will come in. This is a running joke that James Franklin and I have, right? On Thursdays, Jack will come in and he'll walk with James, right? James likes to walk before every practice. And I've walked with James before practice before. Right? Well, on Thursdays, Jack does. And Jack will ask questions. I mean, lots of questions. And James will kid me. He says, he'll say, your buddy was here. He says, had a lot of questions. But how do you get answers? Okay? He'll call me up, like he called me up yesterday, and then I mentioned how he called me up on Friday, right? And the gist of it on Friday was not to talk about the Hall of Fame. I just brought that up. Are you going to go or not? Right? Just a casual conversation. Two friends just talking. But he was asking me, he says, hey, Steve, what about this? And what about that? What about this? He's always asking questions. Why? Because he's getting answers which then help form what he is seeing to then relay to you, the fan. Dick is always asking questions all the time. Always talking to people. All the time, inquisitive. And then in the broadcast it comes out. Same thing in the basketball broadcast. It's just two guys watching a basketball game. Penn State fans have benefited tremendously by having that kind of quality analyst in Jack and that kind of quality analyst in Dick. Or I'm not so sure because unless you're like with us, yeah, I'll be going along. I'll be listening to games. Hear this game, hear that game. I'll be driving to one of the various speeches or whatever I have to make. Or like, I'll be doing a road baseball game or whatever it may be. Or driving back from Rutgers or Maryland. You're listening to the games. At least I do. Right? And you hear everybody else. And your appreciation, which is already great to begin with, grows even more for working with these guys. And every game I watch on TV, I'm sorry, with all due respect, I mentioned the top guys, and the top guys are the top guys for a reason. All right, so they're really the guys I mentioned. Blackledge and Danielson and Klatt and Herb Street are tremendous. They're really, really good. Okay, but this guy's a cut above. And now, I mean, this is the 24th season. Fans here have benefited and probably learned more about the game, even if it's just listening to the pregame show, from him. And it's the inquisitive part with him, the questions he asks, right, where he is trying to get more information, better answers, because he doesn't walk in assuming ever that he knows everything. See, and that goes back to the column that Ron wrote about him, right? That he's not going back to the Hall of Fame. It's like, like Penn State. Now, so let's go back to the last part of the article, okay? I'll skip over the part where he destroyed you.
Thank goodness.
Where he talks about it's not fun for me, okay, to go back. The Penn State games are fun for him. Mm-hmm. And he's told me that 1,000 times. He says, we're just having a blast. Now, he hates to lose. He hates losing. All right? That competitive part is always there. We're playing golf. Well, when we play, we usually pair up. And so we play. It's not best ball. It's not scramble, right? But it's like best ball. In other words, Jack birdies a hole, we won the hole, right? Or there was a case where I remember we were playing it, I think it was Chartiers, and we were playing the third hole, and Jack played, I've talked about the hole-in-one he's had, and, at Sunny Hand and the birdies, and, right? Well, this hole, he had a bad hole. All right, and he comes up and he goes, "I'm so sorry." He said, "I blew it for us." I said, "Well, no, we're fine." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I parred the hole." I said, "We won the hole." He goes, "Oh, that's so great." Because he'll say to me before we start, "We can't lose to these guys." Now, I would like to point out we do have a 10-1 record.
There you go.
Okay, so we're actually pretty good. But the competitive part is we can't lose. We can't lose to these guys. So you still that competitor.
Always there.
But he is loyal to a fault. He has no ego. He's intelligent. And he's inquisitive. And he can express it. And so that's why when Ron wrote the article, it's like it's not fun for me. Why? Ask yourself why he is doing Penn State football this season and next season and the year after that. Why is he? He's having fun at it, and he has flat out told me he has fun doing it. Right? We work at it, but it's not work.
Right.
I mean, we work at it.
Work, but it's fun.
But it's not
Absolutely.
work. I mean, so one of those, hey, you show up. If you're showing up at a job you love, you haven't worked a day in your life. Well,
Absolutely.
you can probably argue that I haven't worked in a long, long time. But that's the way he is. Yeah. And Dick's the same way. I mean, nobody on the face of the earth knows that they have it better than I do. Okay? Nobody knows they have it better than I do. I mean, the past hour has been torture, but no. But nobody knows that they have it better than I do. Right. Nobody. I sit there every week and go, can you believe this?
Yeah.
Right?
And
I mean, but again, work with people that can make you better. Well, you may think I'm terrible, but instead of being the bottom of the barrel, I'm at least elevated to terrible by working with these guys.
Sure. I think Howard Cosell, as great as he was, got one thing wrong, in my opinion. And part of that was probably because he worked with Keith Jackson. So he worked with an all-time great there. But he always said, these guys with a communication degree should be the analysts too. No, you get that guy, and it's the privilege of having these former players, these former analysts.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they have exactly what you said is the knowledge of the game. Yeah, they paint the picture so well. The broadcaster brings it in. They paint the scene. They set the scene. The analyst makes that scene come to life.
But see, the difference but there's a difference with Jack, and it's the cerebral part of it.
It's absolutely.
Because he played the game in a cerebral way.
And
Jack
that competitiveness,
was a terrific
as you said,
athlete.
doesn't go away.
Okay, that terrific athlete who could see everything, right? Talks about the depth of a drop of a linebacker. Mm-hmm. Come on. Who sits there on a TV broadcast? Have you ever seen in a TV broadcast where they talk about the depth of the drop of a linebacker?
Not a chance.
I can tell you darn well you haven't heard it on radio.
No, not a chance. And it's, again, so it separates greatness. And I think when you look at, Monday Night Football struggled for so long. Now you bring Troy Aikman in.
Right.
There's a massive difference. And look, Joe Buck's one of the very best, if not the best in football.
Yeah.
You add Troy Aikman to the picture. Everything that he brings to the table is incredible. And that's what...
Yeah, and I know I've used the word a few times in the last couple of weeks. I know I have. So, I try not to overuse it. But, look, those guys have a certain, quote, gravitas to them.
Yeah, no question.
Right? And that's what Jack, he has that. Dick Girardi has that.
Yep.
So, but it was interesting that Ron wrote the article today. It's interesting because Jack and I talked about it last week. And briefly. I'm talking about briefly. This wasn't like Yeah, was I trying to convince him to go? No, I just asked him if he was going to go. That's all I said. Hey, because camp was starting. I said, "Are you going to go to the Hall of Fame thing, or what are you going to do?" He goes, "No. I don't want to." He says, "That's not a lot of fun for me," because I mentioned it was the 35th year. And then I said to him, "I know we're going overtime here." I said to him, "You realize in the 35th year, this is the 24th you and I have worked together." I said, "So like more than 2/3 of the time it's been." He goes, I said, "I didn't want to depress you." Ron Cook, thanks for writing that. From the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It was well done.
Absolutely.
Well done.
Absolutely.
It gives you some insight into the guy that is loved and cherished around here, and loved and cherished by Penn State fans. I'll tell you one quick side story. He signs every autograph.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Never seen him turn one down. So one day, we were this is like eight, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. People will come up to the pregame show, and now we're in the tunnel now, but we were in front of the Jordan Center.
Yeah.
And during commercial breaks, Jack would go over, sign. So one day, we're sitting there, and it's late in the show, and we get to the commercial break, and we look over, there's nobody over there. He kids around, he goes, "Well, I guess my star has stopped shining." Right? He's joking around. And I looked over, I said, "Jack, after 14 or 15 years, don't you think you got everybody?" That's why people see us up on stage. You'll see the two of us laughing. It's like little side banter like that we're kidding around about. All right. We're done for this day. I know we went over time, but